Good evening. Welcome to We Mean Business. After the arrest of Sandeep Parekh, the chairman of the Saradha Group, there is hope that some justice will be delivered to thousands of small depositors duped by the collective investment schemes floated by the company. But why did this scam happen? Are the laws not good enough, or is it about weak implementation? To discuss this, we are joined by financial planner Gaurav Mashruwala. We've got Sandeep Parekh, founder Finsec Law Advisors and former ED of Sebi. We've got former Finance Secretary Ashok Kumar Jha and Mr. S Loona, Managing Partner, Alliance Corporate Lawyers and former ED of the Sebi. Welcome to the discussion, gentlemen. Let me start first before we get into whether the law is good enough or not. In this entire case, the Saradha scam, what was happening? Is this a chit fund or is this something else? Mr. Loona, can you please tell our viewers, was this a chit fund or is this a chit fund scam?
Well, as I read from the newspaper reports, it's both. There has been a chit fund fraud also, as well as the SEBI has passed the order considering that the scheme which they were running, that was a collective investment scheme, and that is why they have passed the order debarring these people from dealing in securities, winding up all these schemes and refunding the money to the investors.
So this is not a chit fund?
It is, I think there's a group of companies involved which are running chit fund activities also, as well as this reality company against which SEBI has passed the order, and they have considered as a CS. Now, whether it is exactly CS or similar to CS, that of course the exact facts of the case will reveal,
All right, Mr. Parekh, to everybody watching, people are just dumbfounded. Such a huge scam, so much money involved, and poor people involved with their life savings, people committing suicide because they've lost face or they've lost their money. Why is this happening? A company collecting so much money cannot happen overnight, and it cannot happen without people knowing about it. How come nobody knows that this kind of scam was going on?
So this is in fact a classic Ponzi scheme, and if I take you back to 1920 in the US, Charles Ponzi, after whom these kind of schemes are named, he used to have a queue outside his office which ran for 4 or 5 kilometers. People used to give their entire life savings to this gentleman, thinking that he's going to give them 45% returns in 2 months. So clearly these are not new schemes. People have been defrauding people, and the scheme works very simply. It's basically you take the money of the new investor, you promise them a lot of interest, and you pay back the old investor with that money. So a lot of this money just goes away to the older investors. A lot of it goes to, as we can see in this case, goes to politicians, and of course part of it will go into the lavish lifestyles of the people who commit these schemes. So very little money is usually left in these kind of fraudulent Ponzi schemes.
All right, but in this entire episode, chit funds have got a bad name. Mr. Jha, we heard the West Bengal Chief Minister says this is not something which the state government is responsible for. This is the central government has formed a law for this. They're the ones who regulate it. They're the ones who should answer. What is happening here? Is regulation not working? Is it too loose? What's happening?
Well, I think basically there were 3 or 4 reasons why this has happened and will continue to happen. Firstly, there is of course the element of human greed. Everybody thinks that they can make a much better return than they would otherwise in the normal circumstances. Secondly, I think it's a reflection of the lack of the financial instruments being available to everybody around the country. In other words, a lack of financial inclusion. Thirdly, of course, there is very little to distinguish between a chit fund and what is called the collective investment scheme. So people are able to use one and basically say that they are not doing, say, a collective investment scheme and it's actually a chit fund, and therefore the regulatory authority becomes different. And fourth, I think the governments, both state as well as the central governments, have not really pushed the alarm button on this so far. See, for instance, in this case, I understand that as far back as 2003, the government of West Bengal had moved a bill for regulating deposits taken from investors. Now, this has from 2003 to 2009, it was lying in various places in both the state as well as the central government. It has still not been enacted. Maybe if it had been enacted, things wouldn't have reached such a sorry pass.